I'm just going to slowly get us started here and introduce myself and what we are talking about today. So welcome everyone. Welcome to today's spotlight session on the ECMR. My name is Danielle Betterman. I am a marketing and communications manager for the Open Logistics Foundation. And today myself and Jens Leveling will be spotlighting the ECMR solution that we have at the Open Logistics Foundation, and that has been continuously and collaboratively worked on and developed by our Working Group Electronic Transport Documents. So thank you again very much for joining us today. Before we get started, I also just want to introduce that we have our legal product owner with us today. Dr. David Save is with us, and he will be here a bit more in the background today, so he won't be presenting, but he will be available at the end of our Q&A or during our Q&A for any big legal policy questions that might pop up through this session. So we don't want to leave any of those questions out. We want to be able to answer them for you. So he is here to do that. And just one or two more notes before we begin. Number one, we ask that you write any questions that you have into the chat throughout the session. So we might not answer them until the end unless something is super pertinent to the moment, but just anytime something pops up in your mind, write it down. We'll answer it in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer everything during the Q&A. If that doesn't happen, we'll make sure to answer it personally in an email at a later date. And one last thing, this session is recorded. So we will not, of course, be showing any names or faces. But the session is recorded and it will be put online so that this information is available to anyone who's interested in it. It can be revisited by all of you. And of course, at the end, we will also share this recording and share the slides with you. All right, and again, thank you very much for joining us. So today we will be going into a few different areas of the ECMR. Of course, first I'll be introducing the Open Logistics Foundation. And then also going into what is the OLF-eCMR and why was it developed by the OLF and by our member companies. And then we'll switch into Jens. He will be talking about using the OLF-eCMR. So how can it be implemented and how can it be used by your organization? And then lastly, we will switch into a live Q&A. So of course, again, get your questions ready and start writing them in the chat whenever you have them. And we will just get quickly started with an introduction on the Open Logistics Foundation. So back in 2021, the Open Logistics Foundation was established by our 5 founding members. Those are DAXA, Fraunhofer IML, Renus Logistics, Duesport, and DB Schenker. And we were founded because these companies and other companies found that the logistics industry was facing the same challenge. Companies throughout the entire industry was facing the same challenge. And that was that everyone was solving these same problems, these commodity-based problems again and again by creating their own digital systems. And these digital systems were missing some of those core needs, such as interoperability and standardization, for example. So with this, they created a neutral nonprofit space where companies such as themselves and more that have joined since then can collaborate on the things that don't differentiate them. And today we have more than 50 members and network partners, some of whom are competitors with each other. They are all working together in this Open Logistics Foundation ecosystem to build and jointly implement these open source solutions that are benefiting the entire industry. And to talk about why open source is our focus here, why did we find it so important to make all of these solutions open source? These numbers show why immediately. The value is significant, it's clear. For example, 96% of all software contains open source components. So it's everywhere. Even if you don't really realize it, it's something that is being used in every single solution out there. And without it, companies would have to invest 3.5 times more in development. So just starting off with those numbers, it's super important to do it this way. And of course, it makes creating and developing these solutions and involving them into de facto standards that much easier. So yeah, while these numbers show that open source is the ideal tool for collaboration, so does the experience of our members. And that's something that we also really want to highlight throughout this session, is that our members are the ones creating, developing, ideating this solution. And the OLF-eCMR, I think, is a really great proof of this open source success. All right, and in addition to our focus on open source solutions, we are also really focusing on building a community where co-opetition is encouraged within it and not avoided. So with this, competitors from across the logistics industry come together with the goal to collaborate where possible. And that means with commodity level needs, so the foundational needs in the logistics industry, and then compete and use their resources where it matters most for them, meaning the features, the products, etc., that are differentiating in the market. So the systems at the commodity level are really at the foundation of our complex supply chain, and they really require that we have efficient organization and collaboration across the industry to make these systems as effective as possible. And that's really why we focus on open source, co-opetition, all of these different ideas and focuses in the Open Logistics Foundation. All right, so that was our intro on the Open Logistics Foundation, and I'm gonna quickly go into what is the OLF-eCMR. So let's start with this. Why do we want to go into digital transport documents in the first place? And of course, the issues with paper-based processes are pretty obvious within the industry. They're well known. They include high administrative costs, cross-channel breaks, increased errors, and that's just kind of the base of those. And in addition, while digital solutions already exist on the market, they often don't solve the underlying issues of interoperability. So we have a lot of solutions, a lot of systems, but they don't work together. And that's something that we really wanted to focus on changing with a de facto standard like the OLF-eCMR. So the OLF-eCMR replaces that paper with a digitalized version. It's a shared digital format, which reduces that manual effort, reduces the costs, reduces the errors, and it enables that data to flow across the systems instead of having to re-enter them when you come across a different system or transfer them manually. So it really makes things quicker, really makes things more efficient. And on top of that, we gain real-time data, and it's legally compliant as well. That's something that's with David, we really focused on with the solution. And just an additional note, the OLF-eCMR is just one part of our plan to really start digitalizing more and more transport documents. So we are using a lot of these components and finding out how can we develop new solutions, new documents, and digitalize them in the future. So this is just our very first entry into that and what we're finding as a result of that work. So what makes the OLF-eCMR special? The OLF-eCMR was the Open Logistics Foundation first Lighthouse project back in June 2022. And since then, the working group has been really working hard, jointly working on this solution. And back in June 2025, during transport logistics, we did release the solution following 2 joint pilots with Daxter, Venus, Markant, and Blue Yonder. And just that timeline, that work, really shows that this was built and tested in practice together with the companies who are actually using it. And that's what makes it really, really special. It's not just a solution built by one company or built by a few companies. It really was tested by a lot of companies across the sector, big, small, focusing on different areas. They came together and worked on this solution together. The OLF-eCMR therefore becomes a de facto standard over time through real usage, more implementations, and continuous improvement. And we see that it's really working out, that people are starting to recognize how this sort of work is important within the logistics industry through solutions like the OLF-eCMR. And here are the 25 plus companies that worked on this with as part of the Open Logistics Foundation. So these companies, they all started with a shared understanding of the industry's challenges, the pain points that they were experiencing, the operational needs. And once all of those ideas were gathered, we really built this step by step. So we iterated on the solution based on the feedback that we were receiving and refined it through real operational use. So these companies have been hard at work since the group was developed, and even since the solution was released initially, they've still been working to iterate and to take in the feedback to make the solution as good as it can get. And yeah, these companies are still expanding their work into APIs, better integration, shared systems. The work will not stop just when things are released. It continues as we get the feedback. All right, great. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about a few legal policy topics that really come across our desk when we talk about the OLF-eCMR. And the first one that I will talk about is FD. So just a disclaimer at the top of this, I am absolutely no legal expert. With these QR codes that you see here and on the next page, there are resources available that our team, plus especially with help from David, put together to help with these, and Natalie is also sending the links in the chat. So just a disclaimer, I am no legal expert, but there are a few differences that really pop out when we just look on the surface level here. So right at the top of this chart here, you can see that the information exchange is happening between two different groups. For the eCMR, it's B2B, and for FT, it's B2A, business to authorities. And a couple of other easy to spot differences is that the scope of application for eCMR is only for the eCMR member states, so those who agree to be part of this, whereas FD applies to all EU member states, so it's a wider scope. In addition, eCMR covers cross-border road transport, whereas FD covers all modes of cross-border transport, so not only road. A point above all else, though, when it comes down to it, is that no, eCMR does not become superfluous or unnecessary when FT comes into effect. Rather, it will act as an important data source for FD, and it will make it easier for companies to implement this EU requirement. And with all of this in mind, with the eCMR project, we really have this in mind. We have FD in mind throughout all the work that we are doing. In addition, a lot of our members are involved in FD activities across the EU. So of course, if you also have FD in mind, if you're looking forward to this regulation, then implementing the eCMR is the perfect pre-work to be doing for this, because with it, you'll have the foundation for FD already in place. All right, and the last point that I just want to touch on, another policy level thing, and just as a note, the first QR code and first link that Natalie will send is a YouTube link. So if you click on it, maybe expect some audio to come through. But we also are really, really focusing on DCA, on the new Spanish DCA. We've really been receiving quite a few questions about this regulation. And this is a regulation that impacts road freight transportation moving in and out of Spain. And the main question that we keep on hearing is, because these systems seem different and seem like something that you would need to use in parallel with each other, the question is that we often get is this the case? And our answer is no, this is not the case. As long as the ECMR being used fulfills the requirements of the DCA. And the OLF-eCMR is one of those systems that does fulfill those requirements, or can be adapted to fulfill those requirements. So instead of having parallel systems, you can just use the ECMR and it will work with this new DCA system. So again, please take the time to look at those resources. If you have big questions about this today that you really want answered, David is here, and we will be sure to answer them at the end. All right, and I'm going to now transfer over to Jens, who will now talk about using and implementing the ECMR.
Yeah, thank you very much, Danielle, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jens, and I'm a software architect from the Fraunhofer Institute for Material Flow and Logistics from Dortmund, and I'm working for the Open Logistics Foundation as well. So I'm mainly involved in the development and design of the ECMR, and I will now give you an overview about our core concepts and what does that mean if you want to use the OLF-eCMR in your IT landscape. So first of all, it's very important to understand that the ECMR is used in transport networks. That means you have, as a sender, you give transport contracts to some carriers, and you share with them the ECMR, but these carriers normally have not only you as a customer, but also other companies. That means this more or less established this network. And we are fully aware of the situation, and therefore we have chosen to really have this in mind. And that means in the end, there is no central system in the ECMR. It has to work in every scenario, in every kind of level, who is working together with whom. This is all is working in these network scenarios. And for this, the ECMR is provided in two different, let's say, call it options. The first one is a fully operational instance you get from our Git repository. You can download it, add it to your IT landscape, make it here and there some configuration depending on your landscape, and to keep it running. And the other one is you can pick different components from our repository and to integrate them in your current software solution to be compatible to the ECMR. And now I will present you both options. The first one is the fully operational instance, is really including the full ECMR process. That means you can integrate data from your TMS or ERP system. You can share an ECMR with other instances. All this is there. It's providing for everything an API, and it includes the backend and in frontend as well. And of course, as this is an open source project, you can download it from our repository and change it to your demands, of course. So nothing is fixed except one thing, and this is the public API. This is something you must not change, otherwise you will become incompatible to other companies. That means the API is something, please do not change it. Everything else, you can adjust it to your requirements. Especially something like the front end, you can, of course, adapt it to your company UI, UX design, or whatever you want to change. Please do so. And here again is an example of the front end, how it looks like. And we provide currently a front end coming with 8 different languages. This really shows how far this is developed. So it comes with German, English, French, Spain, for example, Polish, Czech as well. And in difference to the fully operational instance, we are providing also that you can pick the different components we provide and implement and integrate them to your into your existing IT system. The minimum version is you can take the API and implement the API into your existing IT system. That is mainly important for companies that already have an ECMR platform, are using or providing this platform to other customers, like platform operators do so. Okay. So they can just implement our API and become compatible to our solution. This is very important to, again, to address this network we are working in. Okay, there's one more point you need. You not only need to implement our API as a minimum, but you need a solution for electronic seals as well. And we, of course, provide our own implementation for electronic seals you can pick and use. But if you have already one, please do so and use this also for the ECMR. As the electronic seals is something very new to many companies we spoke to in the past, I will know, and it's also one of our core concepts. I will give you now an overview about the electronic seals. So what is actually the advantage of electronic seals? So when we look at the ECMR, then it's legally binding for companies. That means a company is signing the ECMR and not private persons. And therefore, there is a legal framework or legal regulation from the European Union called EIDAS. And this is providing us with a legal compliant way, which is accepted in all member states, that you can digital sign documents as a legal entity. And the electronic seals is one of these solutions we can use in Europe to sign documents digitally as a company. And this is actually the reason why we use this for the ECMR. So it's signed by companies and not by private persons. Of course, in the end, there's someone using the electronic seal to sign an ECMR, but the signatures is valid for the whole company and not for that person. And the solution we provide in our repository, any kind of JSON document can be sealed with our solution. So that means the approach we have and we use for the ECMR can be easily adapted for any other digital document. That means with the ECMR project, we also designed, let's say, a framework or concept we can adapt to other transport information, transport documents we have so far as a paper-based, and we can adapt this solution for any other digital solution and implementation of paper-based documents. So it means with the ECMR we make some of, let's say, foundation work to also create digital documents for any application you may have. So, but how is an electronic seal structured? So this is, the seal is very huge. It contains one side a header that's mainly containing all this cryptography information you need for assigning a document, but it's also providing the public key you need to verify the electronic seal. That means you have a key pair. The private key also remains on your side and you use it for create the seal, but you provide the public key to others and to verify this electronic seal. So there's nothing special, nothing we invented, but the e-seal, of course, makes use of this concept as well. Important is only that the header contains the public key. So, and then the payload contains the ECMR, of course, itself, and some metadata information. That's mainly the person you use the company seal to sign that ECMR, the role you have as a company in this ECMR process. So if you are sender, carrier, or consignee, and of course, the timestamp when the ECMR was sealed. And the process actually is looking this way. As a sender, I create an ECMR, I put all my information in. If I'm done, it's mainly linked to the process when physically I hand over the goods to the carrier, I sign or seal the ECMR, and then the ECMR is sent afterwards to the carrier. And once an ECMR is sealed, it cannot be modified. So then the carrier receives the e-seal, he's then taking the public key and verifies the e-seal, and then he's further processing the ECMR document afterwards, adding his own information. And now, before sending the ECMR to the consignee, he is taking the preceding seal and this new ECMR and seals both together, and then he created a new e-seal, and this e-seal is sent to the consignee. And that you see here, that in the end we have here 1, 2, 3 seals all together in the end. And this actually, I will describe a bit more in detail on the next slide, is with this concept, we create a chain of e-seals. And this establishes trust and ensures traceability all along the transport chain. That means we start with the center seal here, shown on the left side. And when it's sent to the carrier, and the carrier is again sealing his status of the eCMR, this seal contains what the carrier does, and in the payload we not only have the EC, but we also have now at this level we have the preceding seal. That means the carrier can afterwards see what did I and who was the version I got from the sender. And finally, we have the same, but with 3 e-seals on the consignee level. From a technical level, this will never end, but it doesn't make sense on the eCMR process that we got more and more seals. But technically, you can add, so this chain has no end in the end. You can add more and more seals in it. And this ensures the traceability we need for the eCMR process. So now, as I described the core concept of the electronic seals, I will give now you a bit overview about the architecture of our eCMR service. This is actually describing the software you download if you want to use a full instance. So it's describing all what you get. Basic is, of course, that we have a backend and that we have a front end. And now we have some important things. So within the backend, we are using our eSeal solution. Its part is a dependency in the backend. So it's no additional software you have to run. It's part of the backend. And the backend includes also all the API you need to share an eCMR with other instances as well. So we share this with other instances, and as soon as other instances has sealed the document again, we sync it back to the origin. So what I presented on the slide earlier, after every sharing process, it's synced back to the origin. So the sender in the end has as well this seal containing this consignee seal, of course. That means he's getting the full eCMR in the end, of course, back. And now you see on the left side, the eCMR is living in your IT landscape, and you have to integrate some of your systems. For example, you can integrate user management based on OAuth. You can use every user management you might have as soon as it is using the OAuth 2 interfaces. You can implement via our API your TMS or ERP system to automatically create eCMRs based on the data in your transport management system. We are sharing emails in the eCMR, so we need access to an email server. And you can send also, if it's shared eCMR, we can also use a mobile connectivity. And we need, of course, a database as well. SQL database, we tested Postgres and Microsoft SQL Server. But you see here, it's all standard interfaces, nothing special. We made it as broad as it is and as simple as it is possible. Genau. So it's a very simple design, but covering the landscape where an eCMR must be living. So if you want to prepare your IT landscape for the eCMR, what you need is the eCMR, mainly the backend and frontend. They are designed as microservices and they run in container as application containers based on Docker. You need any containerized environment would be suitable for run both microservices. Furthermore, you need, as I mentioned, a user management based on OAuth 2, and you need an SQL database as Postgres or Microsoft SQL Server or whatever you have. We tested all the mentioned tools here, so that's when you have them, it will work. And there's also, if you go to the repository, you find the Docker Compose setup. It's a setup where you can test the eCMR. And this comes, of course, with an already configured keycloak and an already configured Postgres database. And so you can run it, you can start it based on Docker Compose and use it. So it's fully functional. And what you need as well is integration capabilities for connect your TMS or IP systems. The external API of the eCMR service must be, of course, public available. So this is something we have to configure in your IT landscape. And of course, what you need is a custom certificate or a key pair for the EC configuration. How you do this, how you configure the eCMR for your IT landscape and to keep it running. Therefore, you will find in the repository a very, very complex documentation. I think it's, let's say, covering more or less everything you need to know. Yeah, speaking about the repository, based on this QR code, you will find all the repositories of our project. It's all free. It's all free to use. So we use a permissive license called the Open Logistics Foundation license. If you are into open source already, so that is actually the Apache 2 license covering German and European law directly. So it's some little changes, I would say, to the Apache 2 license. And it's accepted by the Open Source Initiative, which is mainly American-driven, and they accepted, okay, that we in Europe have a need for an open source license directly covering our own laws. And so this is why this is accepted in the open source world. Okay, and this license defines you can use it for free and you can use it for free in production levels. You don't have to say anything you do with our software. It would help us, but there is no need that you do it. So here again, if you go to the repository, you will see this is how it looks like on the right side of the slide. And important for you is the eCMR data model. This is more or less describing how our eCMR is structured, what fields you have, what areas you have, what are the constraints for data you put in there. So it's very, I think, now until we are working on now and for 4 years, I got a lot of feedback on it. So it's on a very, very good level. Then we have the eCMR instance. This is consists of 2 components. So the front and back end are already mentioned. The backend includes the project documentation, not only the documentation of the backend, but the documentation of the whole project. And the final published result is the electronic seal implementation we have. If you are interested in the API version, you don't need our electronic seal implementation if you have already your own one, but you can, of course, if you need a new one, you can pick our. So it's all free and all covered by our open source license. So we are an open source project and we are driven by your feedback. So this is very important for us. If you have a look at our project and you find something which is unclear to you, or you find something that is missing, but you need it for covering your requirements, please reach out to us. Please give us your feedback. Please mention what is missing. You can directly contact us, or you can directly go to the GitLab, create a GitLab issue, write down what you need or what you find. It is very, very helpful for us. So the solution we present, the solution we provide is, I would say, at a very good level, but there's always room left for improvements. So please do so. Please let us know. But so this is what we have so far, but this is of course not the end. We will continue working on it, and currently the focus of this year is we are rolling out the eCMR together with our partners across their different multiple transport routes and their different partners. And they're testing it. We're testing the sharing process between partners to get better and to find issues, to find maybe security issues we can directly address and cover, so to improve the whole project for everyone. So our mission today is we gather feedback, and we would like to have your feedback as well. And I think as many of you also focus on Spain, this is also where we are currently focusing on this year, that our OLF-eCMR will cover any requirements for Spain. If there's something we have to change on the software for Spain, we will do so. And what we started this year additionally is that we focus on additional documents as well. And the next document we are currently working on is a delivery note. That means the eCMR is a project of the Working Group Electronic Transport Documents, as Daniel mentioned in the beginning. We are focusing now on this next document, which is the delivery note. And this is a focus for this year. But we have also, as Danielle mentioned already, the AFTI regulation in focus as well. It will become, let's say, more important in the next year, as the authorities are currently setting up the systems to be ready next year in some time. So I think the goal is to be that the authorities will be ready mid-27, but we will see if that will work. But we have that in mind, and as soon as they are ready, we will also put the focus in our project on to be ready for AFTI, that we are able to hand over ECMR data to an AFTI platform to transform ECMR data into an FD data set, depending on the use cases FD gave us, and we have to fulfill it, so we will do so. And of course, we will focus on additional documents in generally in this working group as well. Okay, so what we can do now, we invite you to join our work, to give us feedback, and let's create open source solutions together. So this was, I would say, the presentation of our current solution and the core concepts as of today. And now I will give back to Danielle for the Q&A session.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Jens. And thank you also, David, for answering a few questions already in the chat, and Natalie as well. Thank you also for asking all those questions, and there are a few coming up for you, Jens, if you want to start taking a look at what is already in the chat. Just quickly before we get into the Q&A, please consider joining us or following us on LinkedIn or subscribing to our newsletter. These are the places that you will find out about our next Spotlight session. In addition to any new content that is produced, for example, by Jens, by David, we will be sharing it in these spaces. So please consider joining us over on those spaces. We will definitely be having more Spotlight sessions in the future on legal topics, on the ECMR. These will definitely be developed more and more as we have more dates set up in the future for Spotlight sessions. So again, thank you very much for joining us over on those spaces, and we can quickly hop into the chat then for the Q&A. And Jens, I think most of these questions are quite technical currently.
Yes.
So I will leave that to you. If anything pops up that is more legal, David, I will then leave that to you. So thank you very much.
So there are some questions regarding the electronic seals. So this is actually the public key. So we can verify the public key, and therefore the ECMR comes. If you receive an ECMR from, let's say you are carry out, you receive an ECMR from a sender, and in the ECMR we have the origin address of the ECMR. And what in our approach we can add an URL record to that origin address that contains a checksum of the public key. And on your side, you get the public key, you create the checksum, and then you can fetch the DNS record from the origin URL and to combine look if the checksum is equal or not. And if they're equal, you verify the origin of the ECMR. That was actually one question. And actually, the front end is designed for mobile devices as well. Yes, so it's working on any mobile devices. We have here as well. What is the biggest blocker of the adoption of the ECMR? And so we intended to be as simple as possible. But what we cannot foresee for every company is how their TMS system is storing ECMR relevant data. So depending on your TMS system, that might be a point where you have to spend some time to create some software to fetch all the pieces of information together to create an ECMR, or to, let's say, to send data to our ECMR software to create an ECMR. That is depending on your system. So as we cannot foresee any transport management system, but when I mean that will take some time, it's not a big blocker, I would say, but something you have to be aware of. yes, so for the consign, you do not need electronic seals, but you can use it. But for the consignee, sign-on glass is a legal compliant signature as well, as you just confirm that the contract between sender and carrier has been fulfilled. So how does the carrier driver see and show the eCMR? Actually, you can have access via a mobile device to the eCMR. You can just show the front end, or what we have, of course, in the front end, you can create a PDF and show the PDF. So there's also maybe a way for, let's call it an offline version for providing digital information to authorities. And yes, there will be a YouTube video of this session.
Farewell.
Is there anything else? So please feel free to ask questions. I hope I can.
There's a new question from Sasha that just came through. Looks like a few examples potentially.
Is it possible to add the functionality seamlessly into company-specific apps? Well, you can integrate the eCMR backend via the REST API into existing apps and web front ends. That will work, but I will not call it seamlessly. But it will work actually. So the front end is really optional. How compatible are the tools to allow all signing parties to seamlessly work together with loose devices handheld? So the signing of electronic seals is started or is done via you click a button in the front end. So it's actually no magic behind it. So the action takes place in the back end. So the back end takes place the signing process, and from the front end users just let's say you can start it by a button click. So that is actually everything. And the mobile, so our front end has responsive design, so it's also working mobile devices, and there's this click will work. Does this answer your question? I'm not quite sure. What about the interoperability about other eCMR solutions? Well, the question is that these solutions need our API. But as you maybe remember the slide where we showed the parties who are part of our working group, and in this round, there is a typical provider of eCMR solutions like Transporium, Transfollow. So they're already involved there. And I think, I can't speak for these companies, but I guess if their customers want to be that these solutions are compatible to our open OLF-eCMR solutions, they will just implement the API. That's it. So actually, we say we are creating a de facto standard. That means our solution will be, let's say, become a standard by more and more companies using this solution.
There's a question there from Nicholas, if you haven't answered that one yet.
I think I answered it.
Okay. If there's still questions to any of your questions, then we can also add those in.
So for a groupage load with many consignments, could supporting docs and forms sit behind in eCMR? So what we implemented is that you can today you can add other documents as an extension to the eCMR and the current solution, but I think currently we just add them as a PDF file. But in the working group, we will work on other transport documents as well, and then you can add them as a JSON file. But therefore, we need the data model.
Right.
And we are working on that we can group eCMRs for some transport. So we know that there are in some applications a transport containing some more ECMR, not only one, but some more. So there will be, let's say, the ECMR data model is a transport ID, and you can use this transport ID to group ECMRs together for one transport. Does the ECMR solution support the documentation of damages and deviation? Yes, we do. There are fields in the ECMR data model where you place those informations. We have no specific structures to really define really in detail those information, but there are fields where you can just, let's say, in free-form way, place those informations. So for sender, carrier, and consignee, of course. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we'll stay on for any additional questions. Maybe, there we go.
Yes, we use advanced electronic seals. That means you create certificates and key pairs on your own. There is no trusted authority or provider of certificates required. And the background is here really, today we are working on paper-based CMR documents, and you drive to your consignee or you drive on the sender hands over to the carrier. So they just sign the document. So it's no, I don't know, it's a really big legal background, and I don't know how it's working if you want to identify that person afterwards. But we want to keep it very simple, and from the approach we provide on security level, advanced electronic seals are working very well.
Maybe you could add some information about the interoperability of that sealing function, so that all the parties are free to use another way to do that. Maybe go a bit deeper here. I think that's where the question is pointing.
Yes, so actually we are just currently sealing with advanced electronic seals on the company level. This is the standard and a very simple way. So we just have to store on your on the company side one key pair, one certificate. But if you want, you can add more information there. So that's actually you can of course do it in your company on a personal level. No worries, it will work. But from our point of view, there is no need for it.
Plus, if you want to use that seal, you are completely free to choose any kind of identification.
That's right.
Or KYC KYC process before you actually come to the signature process. So you may add compliance checks, you may add KYC, KYB processes, but the functionality of actually signing the document is done by an advanced electronic seal, and which goes back to the EIDAS regulation, and EIDAS itself does not require for any form of KYC process. So we just implemented the legal base layer on everything you want to do more, you're free to do, and it's technically possible. Right, Jens?
Yeah, that's right, yes. So we leave that open to you, and you can define this on your company side. You can define this on your user management and define who is allowed to use that seal to sign an ECMR. So you are fully free here. And actually, we cannot foresee how companies are handling this, because it's, I think, a bit different in any in our companies, or from company to company.
Here's a new question from Sasha on some feedback we might have potentially gotten.
So we get feedback, of course, from the companies part of the working group, of course. That's actually why they are there, I would say. But also we get companies indirectly, when those companies working together with their customers, we get feedback. But we also get feedback from parties that are not directly involved in the working group, but which already have had a look at the repository and tested the solution. They reach out with issues or direct emails to us as well. Yes. I would say the main feedback we got on the questions are the easier process, and in the last weeks and months due to Spain, of course. And in the last 2 years, the main feedback had been on the data model. Do we cover this scenario or that scenario? Stuff like that, yes.
And the question also asks if, when working with third parties, how that works with the OLF-eCMR and potentially them needing or wanting them to use a different solution. The rest of that question there.
Actually, it's an open source implementation. Everybody is feel free to use it and adopt it to your own requirements. And I think if third parties want to use it, yes, sure. But I personally do not have any personal experience so far with that point. But of course, we have in mind, so I think it's currently 28 companies involved in the working group, but the ECMR affects thousands of companies in Europe. So we are sure, of course, fully sure that just the minority is involved in our design process, but we design software for everyone.
All right. Just leave one more moment for any more questions to come through. David, I'll give you a chance. Is there anything that you want to add on top of anything that was already said from your perspective that might be missing?
I just like to point out that we did a lot of information or put a lot of information regarding the Spanish legislation online recently. We have a landing page on our website dedicated to the DCA, and I happily invite everyone to go there and read. Because we see that there's a lot of rumors flying around, and we thought it makes sense to have a single point of information for everyone. That's the main point. If you have any questions, join our working group sessions and bring them to the table. And we got you covered regarding any changes that might happen in Spain in the future. So we have strong contacts there and keep you up to date if anything happens. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Perfect. Yeah, and that link that he just mentioned to the landing page is in there. Also, with the link to the YouTube video just before, maybe you don't want to open it because it's audio based, but that's also linked within that landing page, so you can find it there as well. Okay. We have one more question in there.
One more question. Using the seal-based model, each player in the process need to be digitally equipped in advance, correct? Well, the sender and carrier, yes, and the consignee optional. And how could a new player be onboarded quickly? So actually, we have the little documentation. What you have to do is just creating this certificate and this key pair. And you can do it on your own, or there's, let's say, a provider, a company, so you can do this for you. But it's, I would say, rather simple. And actually, seals is the legal way how we use it. Technically, it's nothing special. So if you created in the past a key pair for, I don't know, for SSH, for example, it's actually the same. So it's nothing special. Technically, it's nothing special. It's part you can look it up in the documentation for more details.
Yeah, we have a lot of information in the documentation. If you have additional questions about anything in the documentation, we are here to answer them. You have our contact information on the screen. You can also easily find it online. So please, with any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out. We are always happy to answer questions about this, about other topics. Just let us know. And if you feel like any questions that you asked today were not fully answered, just maybe email them over with maybe a bit of clarification so that we can answer them to the fuller extent. I think that is the end of today's session. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Jens, for speaking about the solution, and David also for providing your expertise in the legal area. We really appreciate your time, and please join us in future sessions. Again, we will be talking about the ECMR more in the future, different topics, different areas of focus. So all that information will be put out when we have dates set. And of course, there will be other topics, other working groups that will be in focus in the future as well. So just, think about joining when you see any information pop up. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jens and David, again. And we hope you have a really nice day.